Hello, folks. Welcome back to World War II TV and an impromptu thoughts about D-Day. It's been the 80th anniversary. I've had my first complete day in the office today, catching up on YouTube listings and getting emails done and all the other things I should have been doing over the last 10 days. Mag is still out with the Best Defense Foundation. Her last morning is tomorrow when the vets fly off from Deauville, and then she'll be back hereafter, being away for even longer. So, I'm going to share a few thoughts about the anniversary and some negatives and some positives, and remind you, of course, that we're back to regular scheduling again. Stephen Fish is joining me later today to discuss Sword Beach, but you may have seen him on other podcasts and things promoting his book, which is fantastic, kind of giving a general overview, but he's doing something different for us. He's going to come on and talk about Six Commandos' route from Sword Beach to Pegasus Bridge and up to the Breville Ridge. So he's going to hone in on one aspect through which we'll understand how much work he's done. But anyway, the 80th anniversary. So I was catching up with all the Facebook and Twitter and social media comments, and some people loved it and some people hated it, and some people said, why was it so busy and why were the roads closed and this, that, and the other. Well, that was all to be expected. It's the 80th. We think that 2 million people were in Normandy last week. To bear in mind, that's normally the total we get all year, 2 million tourists. They were all, or 2 million people were in Normandy last week. Thousands of reenactors, thousands of tour groups, etc., etc., etc. Hi, Rich. Hi, everybody else watching. So, of course, the roads are going to be busy. The world leaders have to have their security because the world is a dangerous place right now. So when they move from one location to another, the gendarmes, the police, the security service have to be in charge of all that. So that's to be expected. So, yes, the roads are busy. So what can you expect? One of the things I thought was really odd was some negative comments about some of the more celebratory events. So, for example, there was a concert I attended in Saint-Marie-Église on June the 4th. A couple of bands played. There were all sorts of other things that I didn't attend. There was a Liberation Ball in Bayeux. There was a Liberation Ball in Carenton. There was one in Luc-sur-Mer, I think. And I saw a couple of comments from people I know in some cases saying, "Oh, why should there be concerts? How inappropriate it is to have concerts in places like Saint-Marie-Église where people died." And I'm like, well, really? That means we can't have concerts in London? What about the O2 Stadium? That's in London. That was bombed. People died in the Blitz in 1940 and 41. Well, we can't ever celebrate our freedom, have a good time in places where people were killed. I mean, to me, that's just a ridiculous statement. The tone of all those events I went to was always respectful. People came on, veterans spoke first, historians, mayors, dignitaries spoke. They talked about the gratitude they have, the liberation, and then people kind of let their hair down and have some fun. So, it's that I have no problem with the fact there were some of those events there. And I found the tone pretty good throughout the events. There were moments of dignified silence, there were hymns, there were speeches, and there was also moments, as I just said, of happiness, of celebration, the liberation, celebrating the freedom that the end of World War II brought. So to me, I can be a bit cynical and grumpy, and I found it all pretty good, really. Of course, no one got to do all the things they wanted to do because it was so busy, but I think the things that people did decide to do were pretty good. The weather was fantastic. It was warm without being crazy warm, and that is of a particular benefit to the veterans. One of the vets I spoke to, a friend of mine, George, he's on blood thinners and he's cold all the time. When people visit him in his home in the States, they start stripping off layers because he has his house so warm because of the medication he's on. So they have to go armed with blankets. And last year was a bit cold and they were always cold. Well, this year, at least they were warm. So if you were struggling a little bit because it was a little bit too warm for you, the veterans thought it was perfect this time. Of course, the other sort of not downbeat, but reality of this anniversary was the realization that the next big one, the 85th, and certainly by the time the 90th comes along, there just won't be any veterans in numbers. About 200 World War II veterans are in Normandy this time, which is probably more than I was anticipating a few weeks or months ago. But compared to the 50th and 60th, when hundreds of men would march from the same country, even dozens from the same companies, the same regiments, now it's down to a handful. And a lot of the veterans here were not even necessarily Normandy veterans. They were World War II veterans, not D-Day veterans. And that's another negative. I saw people grumbling about the fact that some of the veterans here didn't actually land on D-Day, or they served in the Pacific, or they served in, whatever other area of the war it was. Well, my feeling on this was they were there not as individuals so much this time. They were there as a representation of that generation. In the past, you could have conversations with veterans. You could say, "Oh, you were in the King's Shropshire Light Infantry, or you were in the 4th Infantry Division on Utah Beach, or you were a commando at Luke-sur-Mer," and you could kind of hone in on what that unit did, and it was a great time. This time, they were there as representatives of that generation. So the public didn't care whether the guy they were meeting was in the Pacific or Normandy, whether he was American or British. They just wanted to have some kind of contact. And what really pleased me is how many young people are involved this year. I mean, literally thousands of school children here, there, school groups coming out. I left my house in Bayeux, which is about 500 yards away from a school. And as I left my house to go up to Ouistreham to see friends, I could hear the Best Defense Foundation, so that's the group Mag is with, the arrival of the veterans at the schools. I mean, it's 2 streets from me, and I could hear it. I could hear the screaming from the children. It was like Shea Stadium when the Beatles played. It was like, the opening moment of the FA Cup final. This is kids, 11, 12, 13 years old, absolutely going bonkers over the arrival of World War II veterans. I was hearing French people say, I touched him, because they managed to kind of get a hand on the shoulder of a veteran as they went past, or they were able to. We were encouraging fist pumps this year rather than handshakes. If you're pushing a veteran in a wheelchair around a parade, if you stop for handshakes, it takes too long, and their hands they're cold, and there's always the possibility of COVID and colds and stuff. So often the veterans wore gloves because their hands were a bit cold, and fist bumps was the thing we were doing this year. And seeing that was fantastic, because crumbly old middle-aged grumpy guys like me, I'm not the future in many ways of how D-Day will be reflected upon. It'll be about these kids, and I take it for granted sometimes that I met hundreds of World War II veterans and got to count quite a few of them as friends. For these young kids, even just the tiny fleeting moment they got with a veteran, if you're 10 and they live to be 90, because people are living longer now, it means in 80 years time, so that's 160 years after World War II, there'll still be people around who can say, I had an encounter with a veteran back in 2024. He came to my school, he was at the ceremony I was at. And that, I think, is a symbol of this passing on of the torch that I think everybody was aware of. It's been a difficult thing to confront these last few years. I've had conversations over the years with some of my friends who come to these ceremonies every year, particularly Helen Patton, the granddaughter of the general. She's very much focused on reconciliation and moving forward and youth and making sure that the German kids come here, and Belgian kids and American kids and Canadian kids, etc., etc., etc. And this idea that we'll have to aim at the years when the veterans aren't here. And I think by getting the kids involved was really fantastic. So there are all sorts of things. I can't even list all the things that I saw either firsthand or I saw on my friends' social media accounts, or what they were telling me about with these kids coming out and with hand paintings they were given to veterans, the stones they'd painted. They had learnt songs, they had learnt speeches, they spoke about the significance, the meaning, etc. Hi Norma, hi Kevin, and that's just fantastic. So I'll be honest, I was a little bit nervous about this anniversary. I was a bit nervous about the hordes of reenactors and the millions and cajillions of Jeeps and GMCs that come here, but actually my experience is pretty good all round. Colin, who's watching, good afternoon, Colin. Colin had his bit of a downer on reenactors. I had a down on reenactors. Some of them are frankly just wankers, and but a lot of them are really good and really respectful. And I met 2 British Poles, or rather they had Polish ancestry, who were in Polish 1st Armored Division battle dress in St. Mary Glees for the concert, and they were there because their grandfather had escaped from Poland in 1939-40, fought with the 1st Armored Division. They were here in the uniform that he would have worn, representing what he did, going to the places where he was. And I met a lot of people like that. People were jumping with insignia of their relatives, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, I cobbled together a few photos the last few days, and I'll just talk about them. So this is back to June the 5th, which seems like about a month ago now. This has got my encounter with Bruce Compton. So anyone British will probably know who Bruce is, heavily involved with World War II history and TV programming, going out and buying up stuff. And I had a chance to speak to Bruce, and we're going to try and talk about some collaboration in the future. His audience with my audience. He's ex-parachute regiment, obviously not World War II. Check him out. That was quite good. There, Kevin Hemel. Kevin's been a regular guest on World War II TV. I raced over to Pegasus Bridge on whatever the hell day that was. I think that might have been the 7th. I can't remember now. And we grabbed a quick photo, and I spoke to his group for a few minutes. That was pretty cool. This was the epic historians gathering in the pub in Bayer on the June the 6th. And I ended up doing 3 nights in a row in the pub. No hardship really, but it was a good way of meeting up with people, kind of having a central location to meet up. So this is, you may have seen the photos on the left. There is Rick, on the right is Matt. They are 2 members of Nashville Exile. They were the band at Sam Wrigley's on June the 4th. They've been mates of mine for a number of years. They came along. In the middle there with the scarf is Jules Hudson. Anyone British watching this will recognize him from the always on TV Escape to the Country program about people buying houses in the country. And Jules is a big World War II fan. He was a producer of a number of documentaries. In fact, we worked on a documentary together 25 years ago, we realized it was, which was amazing to think it was 25 years ago. I will have a look at some of your questions later on, but where all those vehicles kept, that none have come across in the Atlantic. I think all the vehicles in the area were from Belgium, France, Italy, a lot from the UK. Some had come from as far away as Norway and Denmark. The tanks obviously all come from you. I don't think any of the vehicles have come across Atlantic, but there were hundreds. I mean, about 100 World War II restored motorbikes passed me when I was stuck in traffic at one point, which is really, really quite cool. So that was that night. This is for me, the most moving was June the 8th. June the 8th, because this year, June the 6th fell on the Thursday, it meant that there were events the previous weekend and the following weekend. In fact, there were still events going on today, the last few. And it meant I could spread myself out a bit, and I didn't take on too many kind of commitments. And so June the 8th, I was able to go to Combon Plain. You may have seen my live streams from Combon Plain, but I didn't take any footage at the actual, or didn't do a live stream at the ceremony. I just took some photos and what have you. And important to me because my great uncle was in the 2nd Battalion Royal Ulster Rifles. They're probably fed up with me, talking about it, but it's important to me. So these, the cadets there representing the Northern Irish Cadet Force that were there, marching past, getting ready to lay a wreath later on. This is a Royal Ulster Rifles flag over the cross at the Combon Plain cemetery. I had a chance to go to the Combon Plain Cemetery. There are numbers of a 2nd Battalion Royal Ulster Rifles guys buried there, although, as I said in my live stream a couple of days ago, they are from Operation Charnwood. The ones who fought in the Battle of Combon Plain are mostly buried at Doula de Livrande or Hermanville. And for those who, I've got more photos. I've got a photo of my uncle coming up. So this is the ceremony. There are French naval cadets there. There were contingents from various British Army regiments. There were French mayors, French dignitaries, and it was very moving for me. This is just before the last post by the 4 buglers there. That was all pretty cool. There's my Uncle Cyril, top right. So he was C Company, 2nd Battalion Royal Ulster Rifles, and that's the famous photo of my great uncle on the right there. That's on the cover of numerous books. That was taken in Caen at the end of Operation Charnwood, as Caen was taken on July the 9th. That's it's his sergeant of the left there. Often in books, it's censored, so you can't. They've put a white kind of paint over his shoulder insignia, but I've got a copy of the one without the censorship, so you can see his Royal Ulster Rifles shoulder title, a 3rd Division badge. And that helmet, that Mark III helmet, is in my basement. I don't really have room to display it upstairs, and it was repainted after the war, a rather nasty gloss green color. But that I do have that very helmet in my collection. That's the Royal Ulster Rifles monument as it was 2 days ago. I took the photo. That's my Uncle Cyril in his more regular British Army infantry officer's hat, which is kind of neat. And this is a photo of my great uncle. So this is the same monument, but this is, I'm not trying to sure what date it was. I think it might have been 2004, so 20 years ago. I expect it was. So that would have been the 60th, and that's my great uncle Cyril laying a wreath there. And at the back is my old red minibus that I had for a number of years. And what's interesting is how many more people there were this ceremony this year compared to 20 years ago. It seemed quite busy last time. Well, I mean, I've been to a couple of a few more ceremonies in between these years, but I chose that photo because it's my great uncle laying a wreath. And the reality is that they had hoped to have 2 veterans in attendance, one from 1st Battalion, so airborne, and one from 2nd Battalion. One had passed away in the weeks before D-Day, and one was too unwell to travel. So as far as I know, there were no Royal Ulster Rifles Normandy veterans in the region this year. There were some sons and daughters, and there were people who had served post-war, but there were no veterans, which is a sign of the times. And there's the actual Royal Ulster Rifles and or 3rd Division, sorry, I should say, and 59th Staffordshire Division monument in Combourne Plain itself, with the Royal Ulster Rifles crest at the bottom there. What was my great uncle like? He was the people from the posh side of the family, Norma, West London. I'm from the you know, the working class side of the family. So I saw my great uncle, you know, several times a year, and he was always very well spoken and didn't seem to show much emotion about the war. I've talked about this before. He would talk about it rather matter of factly, and his emotion would come out in little moments occasionally. And I wish I'd spent more time with him. I also wish I had better questions to ask him when I was young. But I didn't know as much about the subject then. And I did, of course, travel around with him and go to the beach where he landed. And they went to where his foxhole was in Combourne Plain, etc., etc., etc. I don't have a posh side, Norma. My family, there's a small element of posh people in my side of the family. Not many. We're my ancestry.co.uk and is all just, you know, farm, you know, nobody's for about a millennia. You know, we didn't move much out of East Anglia, and it's all kind of shit shoveling and, you know, working class for a long time. I can't say I've got any earls or lords or anything. So what was his profession? I thought management, basically, just various businesses, nothing exciting. Kind of for those who are British, he was kind of doing those things that those programs like The Good Life and the ones with Leonard Rossiter, that kind of commuting into town, working in an office, where you just sort of, that kind of management role, wearing a suit. I can't remember what he actually did, but he probably couldn't remember himself what he did now. It was just a job. But he was also in the Territorial Army. He stayed in the London Irish Rifles and retired as a major. Moving on to the photo, this, of course, is the parachute jump at Lafayette on June the 9th, which I've been to a few times before, and I got to go in the VIP area with the Best Defence Foundation on their buses, and about 1,300 paratroopers jumped, including a few who I knew, and it's great to speak to people just when they've landed. They've just rolled up their parachute, and the emotion they always have upon jumping out into the skies over Normandy. I mean, if you like parachuting, why anybody would like to throw themselves out of an aircraft is beyond me. But the emotion they have when they jump out over such a hallowed ground as Lafayette, or for the British, Salanel and Ronville, where they jumped. In my great uncle was Lord Lieutenant in Surrey in his mind, possibly. Although he was from the posh side, so he actually did do the kind of the golf club set and that kind of stuff. He was definitely much posher than my side of the family. Again, more photos of the parachutes coming in. That was all pretty cool. And now just a few photos of people I got to meet. So next to me is Peter Plank, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Plank, in Special Service Forces in America. I've known him for, I don't know, well over a decade, probably nearly 20 years. He brings over World War II veterans every year. That's MAG, of course. And then Rich Riley, my mate, of also about 20 years. He was one of the caregivers for Best Defence Foundation. Peter received the Legion d'Honneur a few years ago for the French for his service, bringing veterans back. And I interviewed him. I'm not sure how. I haven't done anything with it yet. The problem is when I was interviewing people on the drop zone, the commentary was going on, and I'm not sure how good the audio will be. We'll see what I can do. I haven't even looked at it yet, but it'll be maybe better to get about 20-minute little video and put it up at some point. But Peter does sterling work, bringing back veterans. I'm talking to him about what the next stage is. So they're going to be moving towards Korea and Vietnam programs, and again, more stuff with kids to kind of get involved, kids in history and what have you. So Peter Platt is a good man. And this is a guy, really cool moment. This is a guy who knew me from my channel. He went up and said, "Hi, I watch your channel." And he had served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that flag he jumped in with that into whichever one of these campaigns it was. I forget if it was Iraq or Afghanistan. He writes along in marker on the top of the various things. He was wounded once or twice in combat. And then you'll notice in the bottom right corner of the flag there is a bit of original D-Day parachute from a parachute found at Saint-Germain-de-Varaville. And he had that sewn on that flag. He carries that flag with him all the time. And he jumped with that flag over Normandy. And he asked me to stand with him and have the photo taken with the flag. So, you know, who am I to say no to that? He appreciates World War II TV, and to be part of someone's personal reason for being to Normandy was pretty damn cool. So that was great. This is just a couple of photos. That's not a black post through the middle there. That's two separate photos. The veterans, of course, get privileged positioning, seating in a tent to keep them out the sun, right, looking over the drop zone. And it's a great moment. People come up. The guy in the wheelchair on the left there was a medic in the 307th Airborne Medical Company. He had an aid station at Lafayette, so he was sitting about 200 yards away from where his aid station was on D-Day. Alas, I just never got a chance to speak to him. In these moments, I kind of don't push my way in and hog the veterans. There are other people who want to spend time, particularly, again, kids. So I just keep out of the way. I've had lots of time with veterans, and I did have some chat to veterans, but I don't want to barge in. Yeah, different Varaville. No, there's two Varavilles. There's Saint Martin de Varaville, Saint Germain de Varaville in the American sector, and then there's Varaville with one R, sorry, up north of Ombreville, south of Cherbourg, where the Canadian Paras landed. And so the three vets on the left are part of the Best Defense Foundation vets. The one on the right, the two vets on the right are one's Peter Plank and his organization brought across. After Lafayette, the gendarmes escorted the four Best Defense Foundation buses up to Sainte-Marie-Église, and this is Sunday afternoon, so a lot of people had already left. Those going back to, I don't know, Norway and Denmark were already on their way back, but I was a little bit concerned that the crowds in Sainte-Marie-Église wouldn't be massive, and well, how wrong I was. I mean, I don't know how many people there were there, but just thousands, and again, lots and lots of kids. So I don't volunteer with Best Defense Foundation like Mag does, but they know me, and I go and, you know, do a bit of help when I can. So I was walking behind my friend Rob Stark and his veteran who was in the 83rd Division, and I hand out, one of the things I like about the Best Defense Foundations, they print thousands and thousands of cards, information cards. I've got one here on my desk somewhere. I think Charlie knocked it on the floor. It was here, but he's been jumping on the desk. I'll find it later on. Information cards, they're kind of A6 size. Can I see it? Yeah, I can see it. Just bear with me. I'll be back in a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm coming back. You'd think I would prepare for this, wouldn't I? So this is what I mean. I'll put the camera on me for a second. So these are what they produced. This is for Jack Stowe. So they have the photo of the vet on the front. On the back, they have all the information about what they did. And they print thousands of them, and they give them out to kids. So as you're walking around, I was giving out the cards, and I was trying to identify the kids to pass the cards to, because again, I want to try and help establish these links so these kids go back and keep that card as a souvenir, and then they can tell to their kids, I met a World War II veteran in 2024, and pass on the heritage. This is us gathering for the march. So get the Marie. That's Rob with his veteran, and it's just, I can't describe to you how amazing it is to see the smiles on the veterans' faces. And at that moment there, it doesn't matter whether that veteran was in Normandy. In that case, he was in Normandy. He did fight in Normandy. He fought for Saint-Denis and Myrtis and the kind of the wider expansion of the beachhead with the 83rd Division. But even if it had been in the Pacific, who cares? Look at the connections between the kids and those veterans. And the same thing was happening in the British sector with the British veterans who were here. And then the current serving 82nd and German airborne veterans lined up there to greet the veterans, and the German general gave a little speech, and the American general gave a speech, and everything was all about, you know, reconciliation and remembrance and moving forward and the world. This is quite an important one. The veteran, and his name is just it's in my head and it's just sailed out again. But he was on a ship that bombarded the Asville battery up behind Utah Beach, and Mag and her family are from that. So that's Mag and her family, her sister Thierry. Some of you know Thierry, Mag's brother, who was a French Marine commando and also in the French Foreign Legion. His partner Isa, and that was Mag meeting him. His name will come back to my mind in a minute, but he was taken to Asville battery that his ship was bombarding in June, and he great guy. So that was good for Mag. This is me. This is Woody meeting Woody. I don't meet many people called Woody, but Woody here, the one on the right, is a hero who served this country. The Woody on the left, me, is just a guy who warbles on YouTube. So there's, I was set Woody number 2, but it was quite cool to meet Woody, and we had a joke about, hi Woody, hello Woody, and that was not terribly exciting, that photo, in the sense that it's just 2 Woodies meeting. But also noticing, of course, that they are trying to do their best to bring over African-American veterans as well, and remind everybody that World War II was not white only, and some of those guys are really cool. That was great. This is Mag meeting a Rosie the Riveter. So this lady never left the USA, but without the production of Rosie the Riveters and the people in Britain in the Women's Land Army and the factories, the troops couldn't have done their job. So the Best Defense Foundation brought over a riveter to represent that sterling work done by the civilian community, and that was pretty cool. And that's kind of it for my photos, or at least the ones I bothered to put into a PowerPoint presentation. So yes, the Rishi Sunak subject. I can't tell you how embarrassed I am as a Brit to be speaking to my American and French friends, and they're saying how they were having some great moments. And Joe Biden spent a private time with 10 of the Best Defense Foundation veterans, and Donnie Edwards told me he spoke to each of the veterans for about a minute or two, different things, asked them things about where they were from. It was a fantastic moment. Macron was great with the veterans he met. Prince William was great with the veterans he met. Zelensky was great with the veterans he met. And Rishi Sunak buggered off home for an interview. And I know he was there for the first bit, but I don't do politics much, but that guy is, can't believe, even if he'd had that interview scheduled, other world leaders were staying beyond their intended time. As Joe Biden spent, I think, 4 hours longer at the ceremonies than he was supposed to, and he's 80 years old, or he is, and that's another subject. And Trudeau is a bit of an embarrassment. I don't feel qualified to comment on Trudeau, but he was talking to the veterans and stuff, and Rishi Sunak just buggers off. So even if he'd planned that, just stay later and embrace, enjoy, be grateful to be there, speak to those guys, speak to their caregivers, speak to the people who are bringing them, and just find out what the hell it's all about. And I can't believe he just buggered off. So I don't want to get into politics there. Just really, good memes generated, Dan. That's good. So I honestly think that the positives of this anniversary far outweigh any negatives. And and I don't want to see no reenactors here. I would like to see standards increase. I would like to see them taking more effort to shave their beards off and keep their tunics buttoned up and not misbehave and that kind of thing. And most of them are pretty respectful, but there are a few bad apples spoiling things. I'll just scroll back and have a look at some of the questions. No, none of the paratroopers had crickets. I think everybody realizes that if everybody has crickets, it'll be a cacophony of noise, and so everyone just kind of ignores the whole cricket thing. There we are. So yeah, Charlie is a typical cat. Norma, he's a little arsehole, but we love him. So that's kind of my thoughts, really. And I'd be interested to know what your thoughts were about the coverage you saw. I have not managed to catch up on anybody else's coverage, particularly because I was struggling to bring you coverage, and people grumbling, your quality wasn't very good of your live streams. Well, okay, I was doing it live with internet. I can't do it 1080p live streams when I'm out on location. I have to do it with less quality. But I wanted to give you my reactions right live. I wanted to be on Sword Beach with you. I wanted to be at Combon Plain. My whole feeling about trying to do some live stream was to bring you to Normandy. And we are carrying on to yes, Simon. Lots more things are happening. A lot of June the 12th and 13th, very busy times. I cannot be at every event. I cannot be at everything. I'm getting back to regular scheduling now. We'll be covering the first division pushing inland. We're going to be covering the V1s landing in England over the next couple of weeks. We've got a great show about the Hertfordshire Regiment Beach Group on Gold Beach coming up on Friday. So we are carrying on with our Normandy coverage, but we've got Bagration to cover. I've got the Monte Cassino shows that I wasn't able to fit in because of various things over the next few days and weeks. So there's lots and lots of stuff to come up. So I am working like a Trojan to bring you everything, and I cannot bring every single subject, and but I do my absolute best. So yeah, it's been a pretty memorable time, and most of the people I spoke to had a good time, and also had their moments of reflection, were moved by the events as well. And again, to finish with how I started, I have no problem with people having a good time when the occasion arrives in Normandy, as well as having the moments when you're reverential and you stop and pause. It's everything, and I've seen that transition. I think that maybe 20, 30 years ago, there was a little bit more of a remembrance, and the veterans were sharing their experience of the time, and now maybe it has moved a little bit more to a joyous occasion. But I don't know that that's really wrong, as long as the remembrance bit is still covered, and it was, and as I said, there were hymns sung, there were speeches given. But I think especially because the world is still at war. I mean, you could argue that we're in the middle of World War III right now. Certainly there is ground warfare in Europe, which I don't know that I thought I was going to see within my lifetime. So while there is war going on, it's important to consider what's happening in the world and understand current affairs, but it's also important to remind ourselves how much pleasure can be derived from liberation, from freedom, from nations coming together. And that was something I really appreciated, seeing the current serving Americans talking to current serving Germans and French, and the brotherhood of those who jump out of aircraft, or the brotherhood of those who are Marines and commandos or Air Force, meeting up and drinking beers, because having a couple of beers when you meet does help to sometimes smooth things over, and buying around the drinks is an incredible way to bring people together and lighten the tone a little bit and lubricate the situation so the conversations happen. And yeah, exactly, Norma. These boys stormed the beaches for the freedom to celebrate. And if people came over here just to get drunk, that would be very different. But the biggest clientele at the Stop Bar in San Mariglis are serving soldiers, serving soldiers who may have been coming out of a war zone and going back to a war zone, or certainly in the last few years, some of the senior members and staff sergeants have served in wars. So if they want to have a couple of beers in San Mariglis to say cheers to the generations that came before, I wouldn't feel correct to going up and saying, "Excuse me, I don't think it's appropriate for you to be drinking here." It's their prerogative. So there we are. It was pretty damn good. Any other things I was going to say? There was something else I thought I was going to say, but I've forgotten what it is. So the weather was great. I don't think that many people have gone back and watched those 8 shows I did on June the 6th, which is understandable. People watching live events, you're watching my live streams. I'm grateful that you watched the live streams, but the shows, the normal format shows of me sitting here that I did on June the 6th, I think were really exceptional. The ones with Garrett Graff about his new oral history book. Sasha was fantastic, as I knew she would be. Michael Nyberg, I have such a man crush on Michael Nyberg. He's so brilliant, talking about the French reaction. So if you haven't seen that yet, go back and pick them up and do that. Thoughts on the D-Day merchandise? There was some good D-Day merchandise. I was given a nice 80th anniversary pin by the Veterans Charity, friends of mine. I saw some kind of cool things, and I saw some absolute AI generated absolute rubbish. And I sometimes I feel that the prices have been hiked up a bit of the saucisse frites and the cans of Coke and stuff like that. Maybe they could just not put the prices up a bit, but you know, all in all, I think it adds to the kind of the feeling, and there are so many people here. They needed feeding, they needed food. So without all these extra food trucks and food stalls, people would have been going hungry. And if you noticed in places like Santa Maria Glees and Carenton and up near, you know, the Benouville, that amongst the strictly commercial stalls selling stuff were charity stalls. Veterans Charity springs to mind. The Best Defense Foundation was selling stuff in San Maria Glees. Other you know, charity stroke foundation enterprises were selling wares as well to raise funds for stuff. So it's good that was represented. But yeah, some of the D-Day merchandise is just not awful. And thank you for saying some nice things, Barry, about what we're doing, you know. And I have to say, sometimes I get a little bit grumpy when I get back from standing in the sun and giving a live stream and saying, you should upgrade your camera. Okay, my camera's fine. I have to do it with the capabilities of the internet signal. And, you know, there you go. And to end on that note, I was able to spend some time with quite a few different YouTube creators. JD was in town. Who else was in town? John from the Tattooed Historian. Podcasters I was speaking to, and this year is not good on YouTube. It's not good on for the algorithm. History channels are being neglected somewhat by YouTube in the algorithm, and you know, as Brad needs more support on OTD military history. And you know, I've said it before and I'll say it again, support it or lose it. That is the reality facing some of these YouTube channels like myself. You know, not so much me. My Patreon support is really good. A few more patrons would be fantastic, because this is now my sole main livelihood, and it would be nice to have a bit more to spend on things, and travel. If I could have a bit more money coming in, I could travel around a bit more and take live streams to other places. So. But not just me. There are all these YouTubers who are struggling. You know, people are setting up show. You know, I every day my Facebook feed is full up with these reels and shorts of frankly lots of women jiggling their bits about and things like that, getting millions and cajillions of views, and other things, you know, just kind of crappy food reviews of fried chicken getting millions and cajillions of views that have not contributed anything to what our understanding of the world around us, and what people like myself and Brad and others are doing with trying to bring you unique, fresh, new content. It's time consuming and it's costly. And as I say, it's like in Britain, we had that thing where people would grumble when the village post office was closed down. And then you'd ask them, were you using it? Well, no, I wasn't using it. I would go into town and do it there. But I wish I'd used it when it was there. And that's the same with a lot of these little shops and communities and pubs and things, is that you only appreciate how much you missed them when they've gone. So yeah, support YouTube channels, support podcasters, help them out. If you can't help financially, at least help by sharing and recommending and telling your friends about it, etc., etc. I'm not sure I agree with your comment there about new Europeans. I saw people of all different ancestries and backgrounds sharing in the community here, and being British, being French. It's all about it doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what your ancestry is, about coming together. And it was gratifying seeing people of not only young people of different colors, different backgrounds, all coming together to save this, so to share their history. So I don't have any worries about the future. I think cosmopolitan international societies is the way forward. That's just how I am. And I was talking to Colin in the pub the other day. Colin particularly, but I agree incredibly. I hate the word expat to describe to Brits living around the world or Americans living around. Oh, I'm an expat, you know, implying that it's a better term because you're posher somehow, you're better class. I'm an immigrant. I'm an immigrant to France. You know, that's it. I'm an immigrant. I've chosen to make my life here. I wasn't fleeing a war zone, but I came and I began working here and I pay my taxes here. But I am a damn immigrant, and that's it. I'm the same as everybody else. So you know, I think you're being a bit cynical there, Ethan. You know, but anyway, maybe I'm just an optimistic person. But yeah, I'm an immigrant and I have no problems with immigration in general things. But I'm going off into a tangent now. So anyway, I'm going to go back and get some more work done, get some more shows listed, get some more emails that have been piling up. Oh my God, you should see my inbox this morning. Good grief. But there we are again. So, you know, a few more patrons have come in this week, which is fantastic. But, you know, share what we're doing, remind people what we're doing, and not just me, the other channels as well. I've got some collaborative things coming up, doing some stuff with you say John the Tattooed Historian, doing that. I'm gonna do some stuff, as hopefully with Bruce Compton, doing some more stuff with Brad. I hope doing some more stuff. I mean, I'm going to be appearing. Watch out for James Holland and Al Murray's We Have Ways World War II pods, because when Al wasn't in Normandy, I spent a day with James recording some Sherwood Rangers yeomanry content. So James does most of the talking. I just be Al for a bit. So there'll be some stuff there. I'm not sure I will get to Goodwood and Totalize this year. Maybe. There were so many anniversaries happening through June, July. I'll try. But Bagration I want to do. There's other things that are happening in the Pacific. There's other things in the Eastern Front happening this year. I mean, I will do my absolute best to get stuff out. But if anything I don't do this year, there's next year, there's the year after, because I'm in this for the long run. So I will do my absolute best. It's all about finding the right expert with something to say, who can put a presentation together and add to our information. And so, yeah, I realize there's lots of really cool anniversaries happening throughout the summer into the winter. There'll be some Ardennes content. There'll be some winter 44, 45. There'll be some Italy 44, winter 44, 45 content coming up. There'll be all sorts of stuff coming up, but I cannot guarantee I will include every single operation, because a lot of stuff happened in 1944. That's it. I'm gonna hi Brad. We summoned you by talking about you, possibly, but I'm gonna see you later on with Stephen Fisher talking about 6th Commando on Sword Beach. But in the meantime, again, thank you for all your support. Thank you for watching me when I pop up suddenly on location, and it's prompted me to kind of do more of that stuff when I'm out and about. Just do those, just grab on and not kind of worry about the quality so much, but just express myself when I find monuments and just do it. The problem is doing a live stream, it drains my battery, it drains things. I can't do too much. I have to go plug my phone in, charge it up. Anyway, I'm rabbiting now. I will see you all later on. This is Paul Woodadge for World War II TV saying thank you very much for indulging me with some ramblings, and I'll see you later on. Cheers. Bye.